Hello one and all, it is May the 3rd of 2023, and this is Weekly Manga Recap, a special week off edition. How's everybody doing? Quinn, Quinn, what's up?
Just living life. You know,
Living
Nick,
life.
it's all about
Yeah.
living, laughing, loving. And I haven't gotten any of those down. I sometimes laugh. The other two, mystery to me. But
Okay.
we're trying. That's the important thing.
You say live life, I know. Hold on. Hold tight. Don't let go, just hold on tight.
Yeah. Are these lyrics to something?
Yes.
Okay. Is it
The blue.
to a Sonic the Hedgehog song?
How did you ever figure that out?
Is it? I just guessed.
It is.
My life, I think Austin mentioned this on the recent podcast. So they moved to Harrisburg, him and Joa. He has had to learn that I exist. Like 90% of my dialogue options are about Sonic the Hedgehog. I wish it was an exaggeration. It's not.
And most of the other 10% we just get out of the way on this podcast, so you can focus more on the Sonic.
If I say something, it's either I just cried, I'm sorry, or Sonic the Hedgehog.
Aww.
It's really one of those three.
It's like the dialogue options
in Mass Effect, but they're always the same. No matter what you bring to Commander Shepard, she's always talking about crying, apologizing, or Sonic the Hedgehog. Which honestly, that's my Commander Shepard right there. I love her.
Yeah.
No, like even have you ever heard of the t-shirt company Yeti? It's like YETEE.
No.
It's like a t-shirt company, and like once per day they'll have like 2 new designs, and then they go away at the end of the day. And so it's kind of like one of those like FOMO things. You buy t-shirts. It's mostly like nerd culture stuff like that. And they've had like really cool Sonic the Hedgehog t-shirts I bought. But then very recently they had a mystery shirt day. And they were like, grab one of our past designs or whatever, and you could get it, I think, a shirt for like $9. I want to say something like that.
Okay.
I think it might even been cheaper. It might even been like $6. So I picked it up because I was like, that's just a good deal. And spending money sends me dopamine, which I always like. I got it, and I swear to God, I was like, this sounds like a lie. It was another Sonic the Hedgehog t-shirt. I'm already being critiqued. I wear too many of them, apparently, and I have another one now that glows in the dark. I was just like, look, some things are meant to be, and that's what happened, so...
I believe that the last time I owned a glow-in-the-dark Sonic the Hedgehog t-shirt, I was 6. So...
Well, I'm 34 to have one now, so sometimes, ka-ching, life just works out.
Oh, man, I'm so jealous of you, though.
I know. I don't know how to get to. I can't get you another one, Nick. It's gone. Like their designs
Never
go
gonna
into
get it again.
Yeah, they go into the Disney vault for some reason. Disney just absorbs things. They're like, well, take that.
Just a spreading ooze that engulfs warehouses wholesale.
They're like, watch out, Disney! And it's just a bunch of people running.
There was a bug, and I was, for once, too lazy to actually bother to try and hunt it down. Quinn, we do have a manga to talk about today. Not many manga, however, as this is an off week for most magazines. So we don't have a lot of our weekly stuff, and anything that did come out since the last time we did a podcast, we're just going to hold off until next time. However many it is, it's like 2, I think.
And next week, when we have, I think Eden Zero should be available next week. I want to say.
Oh my God!
We still don't know. We still don't know what I haven't been following it super closely. I still don't exactly know if it's like a subscription, you get everything, or if you pay per chapter. That still has to be figured out. But I think that's coming up as well.
Well, I guess we'll find out and see if Kodansha's subscription service is worth anything. Yep. But in the meantime, guys, we do have a manga to talk about, and we're gonna go back into the past to the far-flung time of 2016. How long ago it was?
Oh my god, it will literally exactly be next week, by the way. Next Wednesday is when it releases the app. Sorry, no, yeah, 2016, Nick. This is where everything went wrong. This is where the timeline like
Yeah.
jumped a track and everything went bad. I don't know if you experienced this, but I experienced time blindness exclusively when it comes to 2016. I could recognize everything prior to 2016 was a while ago, like almost 10 years ago or more. 2016 to today was just yesterday to me. It's all the exact same. I cannot. You could be like 2017. I'd be like, that was like a year ago. I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, I was working nights around that time, and then for the next 4 years afterwards. So I do feel mostly the same, but I think that it was because of the way that I was stealing my own ability to tell time by just working at night and being like, "Go away, son, forever." Which actually kind of segues us nicely into
Yeah,
this
that
series.
actually fits pretty perfectly.
In a couple of ways. This is a series called Fire Punch, written by Tatsuki Fujimoto, whom some of you might know as the guy who wrote Look Back, which is a great one-off story. I'm not even kidding. Like that is a great manga, and I highly recommend that anyone check it out. But probably more famously, Tatsuki Fujimoto is known for, of course, creating Chainsaw Man, which has been getting bigger than ever now. Now that it's been back in publication for about the past half a year, it's had first season of its anime come out recently. A lot of people are, even more than before, are getting in on that, and so it was about time that I decided, exclusively me, with my weekly pick, decided that we should take a look at this series, the precursor to Chainsaw Man, Fujimoto's first major published manga. It was published on the Jump Plus app for 2 years, beginning in April of 2016, and then right up until the very, 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 very beginning of 2018. The entire thing is available to read if you have a subscription to Weekly Shonen Jump and want to check it out that way. Although you cannot read it on the Shonen Jump app because there's lots of naughty things in this series. So you have to read it on your browser.
Once again, Quinn undone by her own stupidity. I bought all the volumes because, like, yeah, it's not on the website. How can I access it?
Whoops.
Well,
Meanwhile, Nick did 2 minutes more searching.
shit. Damn, if I did 2 minutes more searching, I'd have like.
I didn't know that I
60
needed
more
to tell
bucks.
you about this. Gotcha.
I was just like, yeah, like it's just not. I knew it's a Viz signature. I was like, maybe they'll put that stuff on the website. Now I'm just dumb.
Oh boy. Yeah, you can buy every volume as well if you
You
want
can
to.
if you would like to, like me.
Yeah, and then you'll presumably have access to it forever, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe they'll throw it in the vault, the Disney vault, as we
Yeah,
just
the
been
Disney
discussing.
Vault might absorb everything at some point.
Disney's Chainsaw Man and Fire Punch. So where to begin with this manga? The series is set in this kind of post-apocalyptic world where there's been this eternal winter that's been going on. People have essentially forgotten the sun. Everything is blamed on the presence of this special type of being called, what is they called?
The Ice
I think it's
Witch.
just the Blessed, right? Is what they're generally called.
Well, they're called the Blessed, and then there's like
Yeah.
the Ice Witch who is supposed to be behind it.
The Ice Witch is supposedly behind it and has caused this eternal winter to descend on everything. So, of course, everyone is miserable and starving. And amidst all of the dying remnants of humanity, there are a number of people who are called Blessed who have some sort of extraordinary superhuman ability. But a lot of them just have the same one, which is just regeneration.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of people that just have regeneration. It's kind of amusing at times.
I think that fully half of them just have regeneration that we get to see in this series. Two rather, of the people that have this regenerative ability are these kids, a brother and a sister named Agni and Luna. In true Fujimoto fashion, even before the quote-unquote weird stuff starts happening, they're like chopping off their own limbs in order to use them for firewood, and they keep on making overtones about wanting to have sex with each other. They are brother and sister. And that's just a thing that just persists, and somehow persists despite the fact that Luna dies in chapter 1. It's just a thing that continues to be a thing. And if I had stopped to let myself feel uncomfortable about that, I would not have made it through the rest of this manga, because it's just occasionally just comes back. It's like, hey, remember how they wanted to have sex with each other? Hey, remember that? It's just a thing. They're just the primary couple in this story, even though it technically should be impossible for them to be, but it's not, because
life finds a way, Nick. Love finds a way.
Love finds a way. Yes, this very pure love. So they are found by this post-apocalyptic government, last society on Earth type of thing, and leader of these troops who come out to raid the village that they're living in realizes that a brother and sister are having sex with each other. No, wait, that's not it. Realizes that they're burning human flesh for firewood, because that's the only
they're eating people is what,
and eating.
That's what stops him. Is he's like, you can't eat people.
You can't eat people. That's just a no-no. So he decides to use his blessed ability, which is fire, to just burn them all and kill them. And this fire is special in the fact that it only ever goes out when the fuel that it is feeding off of is fully consumed. Yeah.
So Amaterasu or whatever, wasn't that Sasuke's technique? It was the same thing, like a fire that never goes out.
It's basically that, yes. However, despite this, Agni survives because his regenerative ability is just powerful enough that it keeps him living. And he nearly just gives up because the pain is so great. But his sister, whose ability is weaker than his, she is dying despite her regenerative powers, and she begs him in her last moments to live on and survive. So that gives him the push to keep on going. And literally for years, he's just lying there burning and slowly learning to control his regenerative powers in such a way that he can actually control where the fire burns, so that he can, actually start to move. However, the pain is always so great. He is perpetually in agony. It's a pun, because Agni is also the god of fire in Hindu. So fire and also agony. It's a pun.
It works,
It's pretty good. So he decides that he's going to get revenge, because of course he would. And that is where our story begins. And that is the most normal that the story ever is.
I would disagree. I think it gets, there's a car chase at one point that was pretty normal, despite the characters who show up during it. But I was just like, this is a very straightforward scene for how much the rest of the series. Yeah. I should note that there was I've been aware of this series for a while. It's been discussed many times in our Discord. Obviously, it was a high recommendation. That's why it was picked. And by Nick. Nick picked it. Yep, it was a great pick. It was decisive. That's what I loved about it. Yeah. I knew that there were a lot of content warnings about this, and it was described as being very edgy. And I was super concerned going into this because I haven't had a great experience with that in the past. Attack on Titan, Terraform Mars. I think Ubo Blot was the same sort of thing. Goblin Slayer, series that are super edgy and just violent and full of all this just gross stuff just tends to immediately turn me off. I don't want to read it. I just hate the experience. I was really worried that's what this was going to be. And I've heard some predictions in our Discord about Quinn's either going to go this way or that way. I think it might be too gross. It might not. What I will say was not a problem for me at all. The series opens with cannibal incest, as you mentioned. And there are dark things that are brought up, but I will say the series, one, never really seems to engage with it. It's a lot of times usually just references this is a dark kind of gross world, but we don't have to see all of the violence in that way. And I think it helped a lot to have read all of Chainsaw Man that's come out and seen Fujimoto's work and kind of get to know what sort of stories he tells, because I definitely have a better sense of who he is. So when these dark things happen, I'm not like, oh my god, is this like just some creep? Like I'm just like, no, this is Fujima. He's just a weird little boy. He's just a weird little goofball, and it ends up being okay, I guess. I like the long and short, I guess, of this thought is that like I actually found myself not like grossed out by this series really. It's not like so objectively bleak or dark or miserable that I hated it or anything like that. I actually found myself enjoying it for the most part, even though this is a very difficult series to follow at times. Its pacing is like all over the place, but this is also an early work.
Pacing and also identity, but we'll get into that. So yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. I was, I guess numb is not really the right word, but I did definitely acclimate to the type of content that would be, I think, uncomfortable for some people to get through, just because we've read Chainsaw Man, and which just kind of seems to have is clearly an evolution in a lot of ways from this story. You can tell reading this, like, okay, yeah, Fujimoto definitely learned a lot while from creating this, because Chainsaw Man is better.
Yes. Yeah.
Not to completely just like review the series exclusively in comparison to Chainsaw Man, but I will say flat out, like, oh, if you like Chainsaw Man, you'll love this. Like, no, I think that it probably will, however, improve your chances of enjoying this if you are already familiar with Chainsaw Man and you know that you like it, because then you'll be used to a lot of the stuff that Fujimoto does. Also, if you're familiar with some of the other stuff that Fujimoto has written, it might prepare you too, because this manga loves movies.
Yeah, it loves it.
It really does. So in the first chapter, it feels kind of like he's throwing out the big things of like incest, cannibalism, genocide, and it's like, all right, now for the weird stuff I actually want to do. Yes, those don't ever go away, but they are mostly just kind of to inform a general first impression of what this world is going to be like, and to kind of prepare you for, hey, there's going to be a lot of characters who are just going to be miserable in this story.
It is a dark world. It does feel very much like for a moment I was like, oh my god, this is like a dark war or Dark Souls kind of world where like everything is like objectively hopeless, and like you're like, everybody in here is going to die. It's just how long until, and how awful is it going to be, like all the NPCs and everything. I will say the series does not end up being that dark. I've heard the series had like a nihilistic ending. I don't think that's necessarily how I would read it. But I think there's a little bit of optimism in there. I was going somewhere. I had a thought. It's gone now. Anyways, I started thinking about Dark Souls.
Right. I definitely see where you're coming from. It feels like, especially early on, like, oh, there's just this crap sack world where like everyone's just gonna die. There's very, very just perpetually what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of just lack of care for fellow humanity in this story. People are mistreated. The thing, I was actually confused earlier and mixed up in terms of the firewood thing. They weren't using their limbs for firewood. That was what a flashback reveals they were used for when they were kidnapped as kids. Was just they would chop off Luna and Agni's limbs to burn them for firewood, and literally anyone who is considered part of the lower class in this story is referred to as firewood. They're just fuel to feed and empower those who have declared themselves the ruling class. And it gets very, very morose at a certain point when a supporting character named Sun, who has an electricity generation blessed ability, he's kidnapped. And he's just used as literally just a power supply for a city.
That was maybe the closest I got when reading the series to be like, oh, this is really deeply uncomfortable, because you do have to see him basically get strapped to a gurney and wheeled into a room with just hundreds of people who are all basically have the same thing happen to them, and they just have their powers used against their will to power this gigantic city. It's super uncomfortable, but then like 2 chapters later, Fire Punch fucks it all up. So it's not like it's you have to spend a ton of time with it. But it is definitely one of the darker moments of the series. But it's important because it informs Sun's character as this very naive, optimistic person who saved his Fire Punch, and then suddenly he starts spreading Fire Punch's deeds as a religious movement.
It becomes gospel. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do remember what I was saying. Even in reference to like the cannibalism, I think part of what helps it be a little bit more digestible is a lot of time it's sort of deflated by humor. There is a plot point later on where Agni needs to basically feed a large group of people. So he's like, well, my entire body's on fire except for like this one quadrant of my head. So I'm just going to bend down and you can take an axe to my head over and over and that one chunk will just regrow. But it's my face. So it'll have like eyeballs and ears and shit like that in it. And people were just like, ooh, you got an eyeball in your soup. This is very blessed. And you're just like, all right, man, I don't know. I can't not laugh at it. It's such a very silly concept of everyone being like, ooh, it's time for face soup.
Yeah. However, I would say that like there is, even when there is this thought that like, okay, Agni, who after he gains control of his ability is just this unstoppable burning man who is going to come and kill all the people who have wronged him. Even then it's like, yeah, but this world's still shit. And Agni's goal is not to help anyone, at least at first. It's just that he happens to unwittingly kind of help some people by killing the people that are tormenting them. And so it's like, well, this is all kind of shit, and there's just not a lot of fun stuff happening. And then Togata shows up, and Togata is a 100-year-old, also regenerative ability blessed, who is a massive cinephile, and all the movies have been lost to time. So their only goal is, if I just make my own movie, then I'll be able to have a movie that I can watch, basically. And kind of like leave their mark on the world as well in that way. And Togata is just kind of like very casual about a lot of things. Does kind of also save people unwittingly. There is a girl that gets introduced in the story named Neneto, who gets kidnapped and is going to be killed at the same time that like Agni is going to be like thrown into the ocean because he's been defeated and his head's been sealed inside of a box. And so she's like, oh my god, I'm going to be like killed or used as a sex slave or whatever. And then Togata shows up and just kills everyone, and it's like, hey, you're gonna be my camera woman. Hold this, just film stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like constant. It's like, no, don't film it like that. Film it like this. It's like seemingly constantly not satisfied with her camera work, but just keeps on going. Just keep filming this. So, insane people are going to protect this girl. But not really by trying to.
Yeah, Togata is like this very necessary element in the series because
pretty much
until they show up, the series does feel very dour. It is just like Agni wants to kill Doma, and he is driven solely by revenge and a motivation to live on his sister's behalf. And everything's kind of bad, and things are going on, and like this world's kind of tough. And then Togata shows up and is kind of like, I'm just going to fuck everything up. Everything's going to get fucked up because of me. Accept this reality. And I'm just like kind of a quirky little weirdo. And
who can't die. So
yeah, so you can't really stop them from doing anything they want. Yeah. It ends up being a character who I'm sure we'll talk more about them. But this is a character who is both very necessary to the story and one who I really wish I liked a little bit more, but because their character goes all over the place, it's tough because initially Togata is this weird sort of third party character. They come into the story, they're not really aligned with anyone, but they're like, I want to work with you, Fire Punch, Agni, or whatever. And then they're an ally, And then, like, at the end of the second volume, it's revealed they're gonna fuck everything up and kill a whole bunch of innocent people because it'll make a good movie. You're like, oh, this is like an evil person actually,
Hmm.
and Agni doesn't realize it. And then
Yeah.
like stuff just kind of happens, and eventually you start feeling sympathetic for them, and then the story just kind of ends their part in it, and you're just like, I don't really know how I felt. Like this wasn't like an arc. It just felt like there wasn't a committal made to making them the antagonist. Suddenly, this became
Right.
like a more likable figure at the end.
Yeah, because there's this whole thing where Togeda kind of positions themselves as Agni's mentor figure.
Mhm.
They teach Agni how to fight properly because Agni, has just been kind of relying upon the fact that he is an unstoppable guy to fight people, and it's like, what if you learned like a martial art just just so you could punch people with your fire fists better and stuff. Uh, and it also is saying like, oh, I'm gonna do this so that I can make a movie about you. You're my muse essentially. So let me show you, the way that you can like get what you want and stuff. And there's some amusing bits where like they're coaching Agni in order to have big dramatic hero moments. Like, yeah, okay, now take your fist and like punch the ground right here and go, I'll stop at nothing to kill Doma. It's like, why would I say that? It's like, come on, do it. Having to do fake Agni through the big dramatic, like, I'm going to make a declarative vengeance statement thing. But then, yeah,
Basically, be a cheesy movie.
yes, like make this movie cheesier, please do it. Uh, and then, like, Togata, right when Agni's training is finished, and he has a special suit that Togata has made for them to help them out. Togata goes to the place that they're going to be invading and preps them all for Agni coming there, and says like, "Yeah, so y'all are gonna like fight him. Otherwise, I'm going to blow up all these buildings, so you have to fight him." And it turns out like, oh yeah, Togata doesn't actually have Agni's best interest at heart because they just want to make a movie. But then they do things that are very selfless a bit later, and it's kind of hard to read. And there are a number of characters where the entire point of their story is people just go through changes because of the people around them and how they are viewed. Togata's changing is independent from that, it seems like. So they just kind of seem inconsistent.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is, we referred a bit. You referred to a bit to Sun earlier, kind of spreading the gospel of Fire Punch while he's in captivity. So this religious movement starts to burgeon up, spreading out from the depths of the facility where all these people are kept, and it spreads out to even beyond the reaches of the city somehow, very quickly. And a whole bunch of people hear about this legend of Fire Punch and all he can do, and so they start to flock to him. And there are numerous disciples who have all sworn to follow the way of Fire Punch and stuff. And there are people who think like, oh, he's this god who has descended, or he's this horrible evil devil. And the truth is, Agni's just this very very troubled guy who went through something horrifically traumatic and lives literally in pain every moment of his life because he is perpetually on fire. He survives it, but he never develops like anything more than just an ability to bear the pain. And there's only one character who ever actually figures that out really about him, which is Nanetto. Everyone else sees him as like, oh, it's Togata sees him as the muse for their movie. Sun starts to see him as a god, and is kind of like at the front of creating this cult around him. And as that keeps going on, this vision of who Agni is gets put out there, and Agni's only one example of a few characters who change in that regard. There is, it's so weird. There is a female member of the community that he goes to get revenge on, named Judah, who looks startlingly like Luna. And so for a while, like, he's under the impression, like, oh, is that Luna? And it's really just kind of like he's holding on to this hope that maybe things can go back to a time before he was just a raging, burning anger vengeance man. and so, or maybe he can just like let go of something and just die peacefully. But she's not. She's her own person. Except she's not, because uh, she loses her memories, and then Agni tells her that she is Luna. So she starts thinking that, and she is identified as Luna through the rest of the story. And also, it turns out that the ice witch was a thing that the community had just made up so that everyone would have a thing to like believe in, so that everyone would be like, oh, we have to trust in the community so that they can fight against her. But it turns out, no, the ice witch is actually real. Even though they did make her up, she's actually real. And it turns out she and Judah, Luna, and also probably just Luna, are all part of a special type of blessed who have super awakened abilities and also all look the same. So I'm condensing a lot of stuff.
You're explaining things to me that I even didn't pick up on fully. Like, some of this stuff I just kind of read and I was like, I think I get what you're saying.
But that just like is a thing that becomes a major theme throughout the story once the religious following of Agni becomes a major setting detail. Is people around you have a lot of influence on the person that you are, and there are only a very few moments where someone is able to break away from that. Like, there's a moment when Agni is fighting against the facility where he just decides on his own that he wants to save all the people that are imprisoned there. Like, Toga is telling him, hey, this isn't the plot of the movie. Yeah. And Agni's like, I just want to save these people. So he does. Yeah. And he just decides it for himself. It's not something that it is, pushed on him with vengeance. He just decides to do a nice thing. And there's very few moments like that throughout the story, which ends up becoming less really about action and more just about identity. And it's a trip to go through that, certainly.
Yeah, I think there are absolutely worthwhile narratives here to follow. The concept of identity is one that is explored very consistently throughout this series, just between Agni himself. He is Agni, eventually becomes known more as the superhero Fire Punch, and then later on in the story takes on a new identity. I don't really want to quite, I guess, spoil that necessarily, but there's a lot of different shifts, and other characters have their own things, and I think that there is a worthwhile narrative to follow in regards to Agni's journey, like, which is the focal point of the story. This is the character who, every time things are bad, he is reminded that he is being told to live, and it keeps bringing him back up. He keeps burning, and it becomes really an engaging story. But at the same time, I also recognize that Fujimoto has become a much better storyteller nowadays. I will say, like, there are a lot less like cool, really hype moments throughout this series. Like, I think of Chainsaw Man, how frequently chapters end, you're just like, fuck yeah, like, this is awesome, or anything like that. There is like one moment where I was like, yeah, you can tell Fujimoto wrote this, because, as I mentioned like earlier, there's like a big car chase, and we're suddenly introduced to 3 new characters. One is a guy in like a wrestler's mask who uses baseball bats to fight. One is a lady in a bikini who can mentally control a spear, and one is a man in like a metal pointy mask in like underwear who can control metal. None of those characters do anything after that. Like,
I'm pretty sure they never get names.
Yeah, I don't think any of them do. The guy with the mask makes like the volume intro in 2 of the later volumes, one of which he does appear in, but the other one I don't even think he does. I think he maybe is like a side cameo thing. So it is like not a perfect narrative, because even you can't even say like, oh, those characters had their story cut short. I was like, I guess they died. I don't remember. Like, I know what happens.
Well, everyone dies in the manga except for 2 people, Quinn. Yes.
Yeah. I know what happens to the Iron guy, because that specifically happens. But I'm like, I think the bikini lady kind of just gets killed in an attack or something like that. It's kind of unclear. Anyways, I would say that like the world around Agni or the characters around him don't get quite as much focus as I wish they would, and that is something that I think um, this series, or I think it's something that you can recognize now in Fujimoto's later work of Chainsaw Man, where you're like, he's a lot better at this, and also a lot better at just utilizing his own like storytelling methods, things like that. There are definitely glimpses. There's like a great like a 5-page like sequence of panels of two characters calling each other stupid that I was like, yeah, this I could see two characters of Chainsaw Man doing exactly this. And those moments are great. There
Angie and Asa, yes.
Yeah, there are great small moments like that definitely throughout the series. But I will say that like I would say if you're going into this series because you like Chainsaw Man, keep your expectations a little bit lower because this is the first this is an earlier work. It wasn't refined as much, and it definitely felt like a couple things kind of changed as it was being written.
Yep. And in the end, nothing matters, but optimistically so.
Well, I guess at this point, spoilers. Like if you're listening
right.
and you don't want anything spoiled for you, stop here, go check it out. Apparently, if you have a Viz account and you view it on the website, you can read this whole thing for free. But if you want to be cool like Quinny, you just start giving them that cashola. Yeah, I mean, the actual end of this series, I thought when people told me it was like a bleak nihilistic, I just assumed Agni dies, the world exists in perpetual cold until everyone is eventually killed in this generation, and then that's just the end of the story. Whereas instead, it's like, no, they actually do find a way to undo portions of the cold, and civilization sort of thrives for a little bit, but there's concern that like everything's going to go nuclear and like a war might break out. This is going to be bad. But the story doesn't spend enough time addressing it because then we sort of pan away to Luna, who is just sort of like space consciousness at this point. And we get like a little bit of a closure with her and Agni. And it just says like millennia from now, yeah, eventually this planet gets destroyed. It's not really clear exactly what it is. Probably like an asteroid fucking hit and just blew it up. But at this point, Luna doesn't give a shit anymore. She's not really even sure where she's at. And I found that like I was like, oh, that sounds more optimistic than I thought this story was going to really go. I was like, yeah, I just thought it was going to be everybody dies, everyone you know dies cold and miserable. Instead, it's like it sounds like they got to have a little bit. Like Denetto gets to have like a full ass family and life, and like so he dies surrounded by family. It's that's sweet.
There's, I think, a note of nihilism in people's eyes because of the fact that a lot of characters' efforts just kind of come to nothing.
Yeah.
Of course, Togata dies like 2/3 or something the way through the story, so they never get to finish their movie. And we see like that later on, Agni is able to watch the footage that they had managed to shoot, but it's all like corrupted with time. There's no audio. And so like it's not a full complete movie. So like, hey, that thing that was really the only thing that was keeping Togata coming, it never came to anything. Sun
but then we do get that movie though. So in a way, her life is their life is complete without us recognize. Like they don't get to
Agni gets to see it, and it has an effect on him. So Sun becomes completely deluded and just buys into the religion that he has created.
He becomes fucking cool is what he becomes.
I don't know if I would describe it that way.
That fight between him, Thunder Kick versus Fire Punch. I never call him Thunder Kick, but he's absolutely Thunder Kick.
He's got artificial legs because his legs were chopped off early in the series, so now he's got artificial legs and he's just blasting electricity everywhere. And yeah, like Agni comes to him and like the final confrontation is the guy who started this cult of Fire Punch versus the actual guy, and he is convinced because he's bought so much into the hype that he has created that the Agni standing in front of him can't possibly actually be Agni. He's like, you're not the real one. Oh no, wait, is this like my final test? Is this my way of becoming Fire Punch? And eventually he destroys Agni and wins the fight, and then eventually when he's like, I've done it, I will now arise and ascend, and I just touch the fire spread. No, save me.
It's almost again, it's very funny in the way it's oh no, it's hot, oh no
You've got to save me. Who are you again? Something like that. I forget exactly what he says, but he's yeah, it's just, and then Sun dies, and that's it. And Agni just forgets who he is. So Nanetto starts referring to him as Sun because she was the one who was closest to Sun before he went completely mad. Yeah. So she kind of, in the same way that Judah Luna became a substitute for Agni's sibling figure, whom he went on to have sex with, Nina kind of replaces her little brother figure with Agni, and then he is, immortal and just sticks around as kind of this gentle puppy dog guy while she gets old and eventually dies, and she leaves him with this drug which can take away his regeneration. And she's like, look, if you want to, you can finally have a peaceful death. And instead, when the world is destroyed, he goes up into this tree which sprouted from Luna as part of the saving the world thing that they did, and the two of them get to be together forever, Luna and Sun, even though neither of them are their original name. And so despite the fact that there is this just everyone dies without really getting to do what they want note, in the end, hey, these two people get to be happy together, and who knows what the hell the future is going to hold. It's one of those it's so far beyond the realm of what could happen in terms of our own reality that it's got a note to it that it's I'm not even sure if this is really good, but they seem happy. So
yeah. I think the other character I want to discuss a little bit more, but this is a spoiler, so I kept it here towards the end, is Togata and their identity themselves. As said, they were very chaotic for a while, and then they're settling down with Agni in this sort of cult town he's created unintentionally. Right. And the Bat guy mentioned
the way that you make cults,
unintentionally. The Bat guy I mentioned from before has minor telepathic abilities, and comes up and is trying to warn Agni about Togata, saying hey, that is a man in a woman's body or something like that. And Togata's well, fuck, and runs away. And it becomes the next volume is just discussing this, and it is sort of a long expression of Togata saying I feel like I am a man in a woman's body, my brain is male, but the rest of me isn't, and the conflict that comes of not feeling really safe exploring that in this world. There's never enough time to because Togata unfortunately dies almost immediately after this. There's kind of one big set piece after that, and then they die. So we don't get to experience enough to see if having someone to be open with it about would have changed anything. I default to using sort of neutral pronouns with them,
right?
Just because they don't ever really express one way or the other. But it is, I think, it's one of the few trans mask narratives I've seen in manga, which is nice. Mm-hmm. I wish we could have gotten to see even a little bit more, but this series is pretty short, and I think Togata dies in volume 5 or something like that, or volume 6. Mm-hmm. So, it's just one of those things you're I wish you could have gotten a little bit more with them. But, what we do get, I think, is actually really nice.
Yeah. There's other nice parts of the story. I like the detail that because it's been so long since Agni's, town was butchered, that when he actually comes across Doma, Doma's been traumatized by all the horrible things that he's done. So he's this, broken, repenting version of himself who thinks that he, deserves to be punished for what he has done. And Agni gets to him and is I'm going to kill you. Oh, this is awkward. Not sure how I feel about this. He can't come to grips with this mental image of Doma that he's been holding on to that's kept him going for so long. And eventually when he ends up like killing Doma, it's not him who does it. Like, he makes the decision to let go and decides to spare him, and then he just blanks out and kills him without consciously doing it. And it's part of that thing of like, how much of who you are can you actually decide with your own will, based off of everything else that has happened to you. And the answer that you're kind of told is that, like, yes, you do always have a choice on who you become, but it's sometimes very, very difficult, and that can be overridden by things outside your control, as happens a lot. Literally, like, once Judah becomes Luna, she doesn't go back to being Judah. That's just decided for her the entire time. Yeah, I would say not really that I enjoyed this manga. I did, however, find it easy to read through and just kind of like just keep on going. It's got that kind of sort of mesmerizing quality to it where you just like, even if you're not necessarily having a great time moment to moment reading it, you're like, I do want to find out what the hell happens next. That of course, Fujimoto's other works have also demonstrated. But I would primarily recommend this, like, just to people who just have read Chainsaw Man, because then I have the safety of like, okay, you kind of know what this guy's about.
Yeah.
And it's a bit too weird for me to really be able to predict what other type of person would want to read this kind of manga.
Yeah, I will say this is not like I didn't hate this manga, which I was worried about going in. To say I liked it, I guess, is a bit limited. I don't think I'm going to think about this series all that much now that we've read it. But if we were also to like make comparisons to like authors' previous works that we've read, like fucking Zombie Powder, and the other stuff. I know there's others. I'm just blanking on it. I apologize. This is definitely one of the better like pieces. Like, I'm like, yeah, this is a full story that I could absolutely enjoy and appreciate. I think just in that same way, I'm able to. It was like easy to help get through some of like the kind of weird stuff at the beginning because I know what Fujimoto's about. I think I'm also not going to leave like a space in my mind for this because I'm like, I like Chainsaw Man just so much more that like I just don't think I'm going to think of Fire Punch all that frequently.
Yeah, I definitely do get the same impression. I actually finished reading this manga a little while ago at this point, and I do definitely feel certain parts of it just kind of like fading from me. So I don't know if this is going to leave much of a lasting impression for me. But keep in mind as well that I had mixed thoughts about everything
I mean,
in Chainsaw Man 2. So I'm not sure if I'm the best person to tell you like how good this actually is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right,
guys.
that's it. We gave you a little under an hour of Fire Punch talk. So hopefully that keeps you warm.
Yeah.
Your soul and your ears. Your ears are on fire. You should put those out.
Your soul being on fire is okay, though.
That's fine. Yeah. Burning souls are great.
Yep. Especially, no, I'm not going to make that reference.
Okay, there we go. Nick teased you with a joke, and then he said,
keep on burning soul. Okay, so, yeah, guys, thank you for joining us for this just special short edition of Weekly Manga Recap. We'll be back to our regular kind of stuff next week. And I guess... do we want to announce the next series that we're doing?
I do have the next recommendation. Well,
okay.
Assuming it's unlike
last time where I picked Fire Punch, this time, guys, Quinn will be deciding what manga we read next.
Okay. I do have our next recommendation. This one is recommended to us by the great and incredible Mandela. That is not their full title, but I added the great and incredible in there because they are very awesome. This is a series called Blank Canvas, My So-Called Artist Journey. and this is a manga that is autobiographical of the life of Akiko Higashimura, who did Jellyfish Princess and other series. This is a Josei series, continuing weekly manga recaps. Great Josei adventures.
Yes. And I'm sure they're all going to work out great, no matter how many that we try out.
We're just going to keep doing it until I find one that's bad.
I mean, we will, but we'll see how long that streak lasts. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for a weekly manga recap. We will be back. Oh, hi, Professor Peanuts. Look at how snuggled up you are. We'll be back next week at our usual time, Wednesday at around 7:30 Eastern time here at twitch.tv/RealT, where we record the show live. In the meantime, if you need more weekly manga recap, you can check us out at weeklymangarecap.podbean.com or youtube.com/weeklymanga recap if you like the video version. If you do that, you'll see some title cards that were made for us by Steve Man, whose artwork you can find under Steve Man Art, wherever boobs are allowed to be drawn on the internet, which is many places, I am told. In addition to that, of course, the opening sequence and the video versions is done for us by Winslow Cheddar and Malajak Stilitz. So thank you guys for that. If you want to just listen to the audio version, though, it's not just at Podbean. We're also on iTunes. We're on Spotify. Generally, anywhere that podcasts get shared to, you can listen to it there. Just do a search for Weekly Manga Recap. We would like to thank everyone who supports us on Patreon, patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap, where you can also find some bonus content that we have recorded for you to check out. And we also want to thank everyone who joins us on Discord, which gets linked basically anytime that we post this show somewhere. Join it to take part in weekly discussions whenever chapters come out, discuss the recommendation that we take, make a recommendation for a future series yourself by using the Google Doc that is maintained by Ninja X3i to add your own suggestion. You can also use that and just look at all the stuff that we've done over the years and just kind of examine what was loved, what was hated, and just what's been covered as well.
Hell yeah. Good stuff. All right. We're going to catch you guys. Fortunately, it's Golden Week. We have no more manga, but next week, apparently we're going to have a shit ton. Because
yeah, we will.
To figure out exactly how I'm even going to read that much fucking Eden Zero in a week. So stay tuned for that.
Goodbye, everyone.